We have passive and active. And if I were to describe passive, it would be where you cast a net and you wait. Right? If we were fishermen. So we're going to cast a net and we're going to wait. And over here, we're fishing. We're not, oh, I should have put a net, but we're not waiting for the fish to fill up the net. Okay, we're actively going out there and doing something. So one of the things that that I like to talk about when I'm having a business consultation with people is that this is the roadmap. It tells you what you need to do, what you need to work on, how you need to set your business up. And so we're going to talk a little bit about your business real fast. So real quick, oh, there's another important thing that you need to know. What do you need? If you're doing lead generation, whether it be active or passive, where do you store your business? You have to have a CRM. Okay, so this is your CRM. So if this is the roadmap, then this is going to be your compass. And hopefully the result of all of this will be your gross commission income. And that would be the destination, right? It's why you do what you do. Okay, so Amanda, in 2020, how many transactions did your team do?
Can I hide when I say it?
Yeah.
108.
108 transactions. Let me ask, how many people in here would like to do 108 transactions? Right?
So no hiding.
No hiding. Yeah, you're blessed with 108 transactions. And I'm going to ask in just a second, you don't have to tell me just yet, but I want to know how many transactions you intend to do in 2021, but not yet. Okay, so let's talk about this. Where does Fortier Enterprises business come from?
Majority is SOI of Warren's and Sphere of the team. So 55% total is all Sphere.
55%?
55%.
Okay. So you're not unlike most agents. In fact, most agents that I consult or visit with say the same thing. There are probably two other sources, though, where you may get a few leads. So of 108, you're saying that 54 transactions came from Center of Influence.
Yeah.
Okay.
Our business is a little different in that about 20% last year came from flips. So they were listings that were from our own investors.
Okay. But that would still be active.
Correct.
Okay.
So we could also call that additional 20 kind of also SOI, right? Because they're investors that we repeat work with.
Okay.
And then the rest comes from Zillow or HomeLight or referrals from other agents. So a miscellaneous 20% from other lead sources. Social media.
I would categorize social media more
Yeah,
Here.
active, yeah.
under active. Okay. Just some questions to help you guys out. What are examples of active lead generation?
Picking up the phone and calling people.
Picking
Amen.
up the phone and calling people. Okay. What else is active?
Open houses.
Open houses are active. We didn't get to do very many of those in 2020, did we? Door knocking.
Letters and cards.
Yeah, letters and
Talking
cards.
people.
Are you guys writing these things down? Because when you're like, I don't know what I need to do for lead generation, this is a good list for you. Arian, can you turn the air conditioner on?
Yes.
Okay. What else would be something that could be considered passive?
Sending a mailer.
A mailer. Uh-huh.
Social
What?
media.
What?
Social media posts.
So it could be, but it also
It could be
it could be active as well, especially if you're out there picking who you're engaging with.
I was gonna say,
Right?
I would say a post is passive, whereas engagement is active.
Yeah, I would agree, 100%. What?
Does that make sense?
Yeah, Yeah, okay, what else? Any pay per click. So anytime you're paying for the business, whether it be Zillow, Realtor.com, any of those things, it's gonna be, it'll be passive. So I'm just gonna put pay per click. And then over here, you guys have written down some of the things, right? Open houses, door knocking, networking, yeah. That, you know, a lot of the flips you guys have
Right.
come from networking. Events. Any other ideas for lead generation, either passive or active? When the vendors in the audience come to our office for our meetings, what is that, active or passive? Active. They're here looking for leads. When you go to another office's meeting, whatever office it may be, and are looking for business, that's active, right? So one of the things that I know is that almost every single lead agent will tell you that the majority of their business comes from their center of influence. And that they usually have one or two other things that they focus on that bring them the business, right? So, Amanda,
Yes.
in 2021, what is your team's goal?
150.
150. So they want to go from 108 to 150. That's an increase of 42 transactions. Right away, if we know that 55% of their business comes from center of influence, we can probably determine that 50% is going to come from their SOI, just what they normally do, because you're instructing your team on how to nurture, right? How do you guys nurture your SOI?
We do a lot of planned touches, so we use smart plans quite
Okay.
often. We actually draw out a calendar at the beginning of the year that Bree owns in terms of all of our standardized touches. So that's any holidays, any reason to talk to a client or anyone we know. We also think about things that make sense for our team, like Warren's big into football, so anything centered around, you know, a kickoff season or anything to that nature. So overall, it's a calendar of touches that are planned. And then from there, there's continued dialogue and conversation with each agent in terms of who they're nurturing. So for example, Isaac may come in with a specific sphere from a specific place, like Tilly's, for example.
Okay.
So talking about how he can talk to those people specifically. So I would say that every single one of our agents have their own specified plan in terms of how they nurture those relationships based on where the majority of their sphere comes from. So like Martina, for example, has a sphere at American Ambulance. Isaac, Tilly's, Bree, Tilly's. Bree uses her church, like there's a church affiliation as well.
And you guys remember when I was telling you about getting into real estate myself, because everyone was in my family, I didn't think I'd have a center of influence, and then I realized I had 181 people that I taught with at Central High East. And I was like, oh, I have a center of influence.
Right, we have Cyber, Sarah and myself together. So figuring out how you talk to those people, so I don't think it's a one-size-fits-all approach. It's saying, you know, overall it's all about how do we build the relationships, and then how Isaac nurtures relationships, or how Bree nurtures, or how Martina does is different from there.
How do you feed it? Like how do you, because there's fallout,
Right.
people move away. So how are you constantly ensuring that you're adding to your CR?
The ads come from cold, from referrals, from asking people who they know, from, even in social media, it's the deep dive further, right? So it's like, if I'm engaging with this person, who are they engaging with? Am I watching what the dialogue is there? Or, hey, I noticed that your sister was home shopping, or I noticed that she just got married, like, do they have an agent they're working with? So I think it's just building past your original sphere and saying, can I build a circle outside of it?
I like that. Okay.
And then obviously taking anybody from the passive side and determining whether or not you can build relationships there.
Right, so that is, I would say, one benefit of having a little bit of a passive side. Although 20 transactions from this side for you guys isn't that many.
No, and our spend aligns, like we do not spend much on.
You don't spend much. Okay, so let me ask you this question. How many people do you have in your database?
Oh God, Brie, what are we at? 10,000?
37,000.
7,000, but that's in the
The
actual
team.
Sphere team database.
And then Warren has about 1,000 in his.
Yeah.
So let me ask, how do you feel about your return on that 7,000?
It's nowhere near what it should be.
What would you expect? I would,
Reasonably, I know it's like 5%, maybe.
yeah.
What should, I mean, is there a standard?
If you were at 5 to 10, 10 would be like
Oh, 10
phenomenal.
would be like dreams. 10, I wouldn't be hiding from my number of homeless, great, but 5 would be beautiful.
Okay, and a lot of work goes into nurturing a database
Right.
that big. And that's why smart plans make things a whole lot easier. Okay, so I think you're gonna have no problem getting 21 transactions from your Sphere. So now we just have to figure out where your other transactions are gonna come from.
Okay, well, we're on track for, how many more flips this year? 7? The LY? As I was thinking, sorry,
Okay,
it's just
so-
like, thanks for putting me on the spot.
That's okay, so we have 7 more
7,
flips. Okay,
yeah.
so now we only need 14.
Right,
And also on those flips, you know, you have the opportunity, right?
to capture more buyers too, right. I will say sign calls for us, obviously that's not up there either, but, we do capture in specific areas still.
Okay.
Some traffic off of sign calls for passive.
That's great. So that's really great. Where do you see the biggest opportunity now that we have this up here on the board?
In nurturing differently.
What do you mean?
Or adding to the database, so those two. So I would say adding genuine leads that aren't coming from a passive source to the database, and then continuing to nurture those leads, and then maybe specifying engagement, maybe, to different
How would
components. Like, I feel like maybe we're blanket targeting everybody and saying, here's our giant plan, right? So I have 62 touches, for example. Could I categorize better? Could I label differently? Could I talk to people that feels a little bit more intentional? To say, I'm talking to you, to maybe garner a little bit more about the conversion rate. on
Are you
those.
in a coaching program right now?
No.
Well, if you were, I would say you definitely need to get clarity around that with your coach, because that 7,000, if it's coming from all of your guys' Sphere and Warren's, my thought is that there is lost opportunity in that. And better than investing here
Yeah.
would be to spend the time here, because if you can get that 55% up to 60 or to
Right.
65 or to 70,
And then a higher conversion.
and then
on
a
the
higher
total
conversion
leads.
off the total, yeah.
So,
Yep.
Joanna and Amanda, as I sit here and listen to this, I think one of the problems that I experience, and I may be the odd duck in the room, but is, you've gotta make time for stuff like that. And to put that on my calendar sometimes feels like I'm not working. So I have I'm gonna say a wrong thought process going on in that, I wouldn't necessarily put that on my time as lead gen or working. It's kinda like one day I was showing a house and the man said to me, oh my God, I've gotta go to work. And I said, oh, me too. And then I stopped and I go, oh,
I'm at work.
I am working.
Yeah, I am working.
You know, and so I think sometimes we look at things incorrectly. And for me, this has really helped because it's saying, you have to take the time to clean up or work on your database, and it's okay, that's work.
Right.
It's not, you're just playing around on your computer like,
Doing what? Right.
Well, and when you're not playing around on your computer, it really is work, and you leave feeling amazing. Smart plans for me have been a pretty freeing thing. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And does your mind race all the time about new ones that you can create?
Oh, of course, because it's like, how could we talk to somebody differently? And like I was saying, do we target people differently to really figure out how to segment them out? But then at the same token, they become a little bit of a crutch, right? Because it's like, okay, well, I'm talking to all these people, or I'm being reminded to talk to these people, but am I making it an honest attempt and a genuine attempt to engage with them based upon what they're doing, what I'm seeing them do, right? Social media is a powerful thing. So instead of saying, oh, well, they're not on my list to call for another 2 weeks, maybe you see something that triggers you and you make that part of your attention. I was gonna say, after Jennifer's point, Warren will say like, you know, what have you guys got on deck for me this week? And our conversation will be, who are you golfing with this week? Who have you got lined up to meet with? What social event or club do you have a meeting for? Here's your list of people that you need to talk to. We record slide outs and do Twilio texts and everything that you can send out as well. But those activities, like who are you golfing with? I mean, that sounds like fun, right? It's like, oh, Warren went golfing again today. It's like, right, who did he golf with?
He'll
Who
come
did he
back
talk
from
to while he was
golfing
there?
with 3 appointments.
Right.
Every
That's
time.
what we need.
Yeah. So this is what we need you to do.
Go golf.
So I hope that you're hearing that activity really makes a difference. And even in my conversation with Scott today, he's like, yeah, but I don't have anything new going into escrow. That's, I think, where our focus always has been is, oh, we don't have a transaction that just went pending today, when our focus really needs to be on the activities that we're doing in order to bring the appointments. And when you have a roadmap like this, so I'm thinking about you, Mike, like, and you getting your business started and transitioning in, and right away I'm thinking, you're probably thinking, well, I don't know where my business is gonna come from. But I can tell you just from interviewing tons and tons of agents over the years that the majority of your business is gonna come from your center of influence. So the first thing I advise all new agents is get together a list of 200 people who you know. First name, last name, birth date, email address, phone number, and physical address, because we're in the real estate business, we need to know where everyone lives, right? That's our job. And that's where we're gonna start. And if that's where the majority of the top producers' business comes from, and the team members on their team, then it's probably gonna be the same with you too. And then we figure out the other things to fill in the holes. Any questions, thoughts, comments about this?
I think it's really thought-provoking. I love that.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
You know what's really cool? You can do this with an individual agent. So I could sit with somebody who's not on a team and I could have this very same conversation. Or I could be Amanda and now she could go back to her team and she could have this very same conversation with any member on her team, and it would be a great coaching conversation. And now I've given it to all of you guys. So if you are like me, go back and have this conversation with yourself. And there's a lot of you in this room who are in the lead generation business. And then have it with somebody else, because when you teach something, you start to internalize it and light bulbs go off. Anybody else?
Well, I'll take any ideas by any means.
The thing that really resonated with me is that, I first have to believe in this. I mean, you have to, it's almost like keeping your head down, staying in the gym, working out, off-season workouts, whatever analogy you wanna use, but knowing that this is going to result in making your and other people's dreams come true. Just buy into it. It's like, almost like Nike, just do it, just do it, just do
Right.
it. So once you believe in it, it does make it easier to see, like Jennifer was saying, that, oh, we are working. I was putting here, lead generation, setting up databases, setting up smart plans, et cetera, is very much work.
Honestly, the biggest word that, like, if I'm talking to a new agent about what you do to drum up business, the biggest word I can use is relationships.
Yeah.
With everybody, like other agents, with, like, for us, it's with wholesalers, with investors, with potential clients, with vendors, who all become potential
And they're
clients.
everywhere if we just look.
Do you have a specific lesson that you give on that conversation?
Relationships?
Yeah.
It's usually question based, so it's, talk to me about where you've spent time in your life. Because people do, especially as a younger new agent, which most of ours have been, it's typically, well, I don't know anybody who can buy a house, or, I don't have that large of a sphere or center of influence at all. So it's very question based to get them to understand you do know people, and where you have influence, and where you've already established credibility or trust or validity with those people in your life.
So not to put you on the spot.
No, go ahead.
But what are you doing next week at 11, and would you have 30 minutes to come and teach these guys, because I'm gonna be out of town,
Sure.
how to ask those questions? I was just sitting here thinking of that.
Sure.
Like,
I think.
No, next Tuesday you're out of office.
Oh, just, I lied, it's my niece's birthday, I'm at the Zoom.
I'm like, I hate to interrupt, but.
That's okay.
It's all I'm looking at your calendar,
Okay,
so no.
what if we get her on the calendar for another time? Would you guys be interested in hearing that conversation?
Oh, I will do it if you guys wanna hear it again.
Okay, so that would be the 27th.
Okay.
So Joanna,
Yeah.
for me, when I look at this, the next step is to put wheels on it somehow or another. And so
Okay.
that's where my calendar comes into play. And I put everything that's on there on my calendar, and then the calendar directs my activities.
Yeah. Do you guys calendar your calls in any certain way, like to your center of influence? Do you have a method for that?
It's by agent, so their smart plans obviously will dictate, and then as far as Lauren's and my sphere, it is very calendarized as far as who we're talking to, when, and how frequently.
I have to create a task on my calendar to call people. And so I go in, like I have monthly calls that I make, and if I'm making the same calls to the same group for that quarter, I go and I schedule it all out in advance and I just do it as a task.
Well, and Command does that. I cleared out my tasks yesterday.
What you have to train yourself is to go in every day and look at what your tasks
Right.
are.
I
On your
also
calendar.
created tags. So like for Warren's specific database, it's like week 1, this is his list, and so there's a tag. So I can pull week 1 who he's already called, and then each week it just moves on. So I have a
And then
tag.
rotates back
That's
around.
nice.
Yeah.
Do you do it for 52 weeks or do you do it for
52.
13 and then?
I split his database. I like a methodical how many would he need to touch per week in order to hit the entire database per year. So it's weekly, and
Awesome.
then at the end of the year he'll start again.
Good stuff. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it. I really, really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
And now I can say to Jason Abrams that I did my homework. So, yes. All right. We, and hopefully, not hopefully, I am sure that next week, I'll be on South Padre Island. I'm sorry. But the week after that, after Amanda does her little presentation, I'll have more to teach you from Jason Abrams. I'm super excited. So we don't need to record anymore. And Ari, I'll let you take over with the numbers.